The ancient stones of Edinburgh Castle had witnessed many coronations, but never one quite like this. As dawn broke over Scotland's historic capital, thousands gathered along the Royal Mile, their faces painted with anticipation and national pride. The air buzzed with excitement as bagpipers tuned their instruments, preparing melodies that would echo through centuries of tradition. Today wasn't just another royal visit. It was the moment when two hearts would be officially welcomed as Scotland's beloved sovereign and Queen Consort, marking the beginning of a new chapter in the nation's storied monarchy. What started as whispers in palace corridors had grown into the most anticipated celebration Edinburgh had seen in decades. The couple's journey to this momentous day had been filled with challenges that tested their resolve, public scrutiny that questioned their every move, and personal sacrifices that only they truly understood. Yet here they stood, ready to embrace their destiny among the people who had watched their love story unfold from afar. The cobblestone streets that had once echoed with the footsteps of Mary Queen of Scots now trembled under the weight of celebration. Modern Scotland was about to welcome its new royal chapter, and Edinburgh, with all its medieval grandeur and contemporary spirit, would serve as the perfect backdrop for a story that would be remembered for generations to come. The royal train pulled into Edinburgh Waverley Station at precisely 9 in the morning, its deep green carriages gleaming under the Scottish sun. Steam rose from the tracks as the locomotive came to a gentle stop, carrying within its ornate compartments the future sovereign and Queen Consort of Scotland. The journey from London had taken them through rolling English countryside, past ancient battlefields, and, finally, into the heart of Scotland, a symbolic passage that mirrored their own transformation from private individuals to public figures destined for the throne. Inside the royal carriage, the sovereign adjusted his ceremonial Highland dress, the same tartan pattern worn by his ancestors centuries before. The weight of tradition pressed heavily upon his shoulders, yet his eyes sparkled with genuine excitement. Beside him, the Queen Consort smoothed her emerald silk dress, chosen specifically to honor Scotland's national color. Her hands trembled slightly, not from nervousness, but from the overwhelming emotion of finally arriving at this moment they had both dreamed of since childhood. The station platform buzzed with carefully organized activity. Royal protection officers moved with practiced precision, their earpieces crackling with constant updates. Local dignitaries adjusted their formal attire one final time, rehearsing the greetings they had practiced for weeks. Members of the Scottish Press Corps positioned themselves behind designated barriers, their cameras ready to capture every moment of this historic arrival. Lord Provost Margaret Campbell stood at the forefront of the welcoming committee, her ceremonial robes flowing in the morning breeze. As Edinburgh's first citizen, she would have the honor of officially welcoming the royal couple to her city. Her speech, written and rewritten dozens of times, lay folded in her pocket. She had served as Lord Provost for 8 years, but nothing had prepared her for the magnitude of this moment. The train doors opened with a soft pneumatic hiss, and a collective intake of breath seemed to rise from the crowd. The sovereign emerged first, his bearing confident yet approachable. Years of preparation had taught him to balance the formality required by protocol with the warmth expected by the people. He paused at the top of the steps, surveying the scene before him with appreciation for the effort that had gone into this welcome. The Queen Consort appeared beside him, her grace immediately apparent to everyone watching. She had studied the traditions of royal arrivals, understanding that every gesture would be analyzed and remembered. Yet her smile was genuinely warm as she took in the sight of Edinburgh's representatives gathered to greet them. The purple carpet had been rolled out perfectly, leading from the train to where the official vehicles waited. As they descended together, the sovereign caught sight of young Emma MacLeod, a 10-year-old girl from a local primary school who had been chosen to present the traditional welcome bouquet. Emma stood proudly in her school uniform, clutching the flowers that had been specially arranged by Edinburgh's finest florist. Her teacher had coached her on the proper curtsy, but seeing the royal couple approach, Emma's preparations seemed to meld away into pure excitement. The Lord Provost stepped forward to make the formal introduction, her voice carrying clearly across the platform despite her racing heart. "Your Majesty, Your Royal Highness, on behalf of the citizens of Edinburgh, I have the profound honor to welcome you to our historic city." She executed a perfect curtsy, one that had been practiced countless times in her office mirror. The sovereign's response was everything the crowd had hoped for: warm, acknowledging the specific honor of being in Edinburgh, and expressing genuine excitement about the celebrations ahead. His years of public speaking served him well, but those watching closely could detect the emotion beneath his polished delivery. This wasn't just another royal engagement. It was the beginning of his formal relationship with the Scottish people. The Queen Consort knelt gracefully to receive Emma's bouquet, taking time to ask about the girl's school and what she enjoyed studying. This unscripted moment would later become one of the most photographed interactions of the entire visit, capturing the Queen Consort's natural ability to connect with people of all ages. Emma's nervous giggle in response to the royal attention would echo in news reports around the world. Behind the scenes, the logistics team worked seamlessly to maintain the schedule. The royal motorcade had been precisely positioned, with each vehicle's role clearly defined. Local police coordinated with royal protection officers to ensure secure passage through Edinburgh's narrow streets. Traffic had been diverted hours earlier, creating clear routes to Edinburgh Castle where the main ceremony would take place. The crowds lining the streets from the station had been gathering since dawn. Mrs. Jean Stewart, a retired teacher from Leith, had arrived at 4 in the morning to secure a prime position along the Royal Mile. She had attended every royal visit to Edinburgh for the past 40 years and, today, represented the culmination of her lifelong fascination with the monarchy. Her thermos of tea and packet of shortbread biscuits had sustained her through the long wait, but the excitement of the approaching motorcade made her forget any discomfort. Young families had claimed spots along the barriers, children perched on their parents' shoulders for better views. The Mackenzie family had traveled from the Highlands specifically for this occasion, their tartan scarves waving in the breeze. 7-year-old Hamish Mackenzie clutched a small Scottish flag, his face painted with the blue and white saltire. His sister Morag wore a homemade crown crafted from cardboard and covered in glitter, her interpretation of what a real crown should look like. The royal vehicles moved slowly through the streets, allowing maximum opportunity for the crowds to see their future monarch and his consort. The sovereign and Queen Consort waved continuously, their faces showing genuine pleasure at the enthusiastic reception. Street musicians played traditional Scottish melodies, their fiddles and pipes creating a soundtrack that seemed to follow the motorcade along its route. Edinburgh Castle loomed ahead, its ancient walls bathed in morning sunshine. The site of the fortress, perched dramatically on its volcanic rock, never failed to impress visitors, but today it held special significance. Within its walls, preparations for the formal ceremony had reached fever pitch. The Great Hall had been transformed for the occasion, its historic stones decorated with flowers that had been grown specifically for this event. The final approach to the castle gates marked the end of the journey that had begun years earlier with their engagement announcement. Every mile traveled from London, every smile shared with the crowds, every carefully chosen word had led to this moment. As the motorcade passed under the ancient portcullis, both the sovereign and Queen Consort understood that they were crossing not just a physical threshold, but stepping definitively into their roles as Scotland's royal representatives. The cheers of the crowd echoed off the castle walls, a sound that seemed to connect the present moment with centuries of Scottish history. Royal guards stood at attention in their ceremonial dress, their bearskin hats creating perfect lines along the approach to the main entrance. The precision of their formation spoke to the months of preparation that had preceded this day. Inside the castle, staff members who had worked tirelessly to prepare for this moment allowed themselves brief smiles of satisfaction. The head housekeeper, Mrs. Patricia Ross, had overseen every detail from the placement of flower arrangements to the polishing of silver that hadn't been used in decades. Her team had worked through the night to ensure that everything met the exacting standards expected for such an occasion. The castle's historic chambers had been opened, and prepared for the various ceremonial functions planned throughout the day. The crown room, where the Scottish crown jewels were displayed, would play a crucial role in the upcoming ceremony. The ancient symbols of Scottish monarchy, the crown, scepter, and sword of state, waited in their cases, ready to be part of the formal proceedings that would officially welcome the royal couple to their Scottish roles. As the royal couple stepped from their vehicle within the castle courtyard, they were greeted by the sound of cannon fire, a traditional salute that reverberated across Edinburgh and could be heard for miles around. The 21-gun salute marked the official beginning of their ceremonial day, each boom echoing across the city and prompting cheers from the crowds still gathered in the streets below. The ancient stones of Edinburgh Castle had witnessed countless moments of Scottish history, from medieval battles to royal celebrations, and now they would witness the formal welcome of Scotland's new sovereign and Queen Consort. The stage was set for a ceremony that would blend centuries-old traditions with the modern expectations of a 21st-century monarchy. The first phase of their Edinburgh celebration had concluded successfully, with the royal couple safely within the castle walls and the crowds outside still celebrating in the streets. The carefully orchestrated arrival had exceeded all expectations, setting the tone for the remarkable events that would follow throughout this historic day. The journey from London was complete, but the real celebration was just beginning. The Great Hall of Edinburgh Castle had been transformed into a magnificent ceremonial space that captured the essence of Scottish heritage while honoring royal tradition. Centuries-old banners hung from the rafters, their colors still vibrant despite their age. The stone walls, which had echoed with the voices of kings and queens throughout history, were adorned with arrangements of Scottish heather, thistle, and white roses, symbols that represented the union of nations and the continuity of the monarchy. Lord Lion King of Arms, Scotland's chief herald, stood in his resplendent ceremonial robes at the center of the hall. His role today would be to formally proclaim the sovereign and Queen Consort's titles and their relationship to Scotland. The ancient office he held had been responsible for matters of heraldry and ceremony for over 500 years, and the weight of that tradition was evident in every carefully planned detail of today's proceedings. The assembled guests represented a cross-section of Scottish society, from clan chiefs wearing their ancestral tartans to university chancellors in their academic robes. The First Minister of Scotland sat in the front row, having traveled from Holyrood Palace, where she had spent the morning reviewing her ceremonial address. Her presence symbolized the modern constitutional relationship between the monarchy and Scotland's democratic government. Representatives from Scotland's ancient institutions had gathered to witness this historic moment. The moderator of the General Assembly of the Church of Scotland wore his formal clerical attire, ready to offer the traditional blessing that would be part of the ceremony. Beside him sat the keeper of the Great Seal of Scotland, whose ancestors had performed similar roles for monarchs stretching back to the medieval period. The Queen Consort had changed into a stunning gown designed specifically for this occasion by Scotland's most celebrated fashion designer. The deep blue silk echoed the color of the Scottish flag, while intricate silver embroidery depicted native Scottish flora. Her jewelry included pieces from the royal collection that had specific connections to Scotland, including a brooch that had belonged to previous queen consorts who had visited Edinburgh Castle. The sovereign now wore the full ceremonial dress of the Royal Regiment of Scotland, his uniform adorned with medals that marked significant moments in his royal education and service. The kilt he wore featured the royal tartan, a pattern reserved exclusively for the royal family. His bearing showed the confidence that came from years of preparation for moments exactly like this one. A hush fell over the assembly as the ceremony began with the ancient ritual of the presentation of keys. The Constable of Edinburgh Castle, a hereditary position held by the Earls of Mar for generations, stepped forward carrying an ornate silver key on a velvet cushion. This symbolic gesture, dating back centuries, represented the formal handing over of the castle to the sovereign's care during their visit. The key itself was a work of art, crafted by Scotland's finest silversmiths in the 18th century and used only for the most significant royal occasions. Its intricate design included the arms of Scotland, England, and Ireland, representing the union of the kingdoms. As the constable knelt to present the key, the assembled guests understood they were witnessing a ritual that connected the present moment directly to Scotland's royal past. The sovereign accepted the key with words that had been carefully crafted to acknowledge both the honor of the gesture and his commitment to Scotland's future. His response, delivered in clear, measured tones, spoke of his deep respect for Scottish traditions and his eagerness to serve the Scottish people in his new role. The emotion in his voice was unmistakable, betraying the significance this moment held for him personally. Lord Lyon then began the formal proclamation, his voice trained to carry clearly through the stone hall without artificial amplification. The ancient words, some dating back to medieval ceremony, proclaimed the sovereign's titles and his special relationship to Scotland. Each phrase was delivered with the precision required by centuries of protocol, yet the herald's obvious pride in his role gave warmth to the formal language. The Queen Consort's role in the ceremony was equally significant, though different in nature. As her titles were proclaimed, she stood with dignity that spoke to her understanding of the responsibility she was accepting. Her own journey to this moment had been unique, involving years of learning about Scottish culture, history, and traditions. The genuine smile on her face showed how much this formal recognition meant to her. The blessing delivered by the Church of Scotland's representative added a spiritual dimension to the proceedings that resonated through the ancient hall. The words, drawn from both scripture and traditional Celtic blessings, asked for divine guidance in the couple's service to Scotland. The congregation's murmured amen seemed to seal the spiritual aspect of their welcome to Scotland. Music played an essential role throughout the ceremony, with performances by some of Scotland's most talented traditional musicians. The Royal Conservatoire of Scotland had provided a choir whose voices filled the stone spaces with harmonies that seemed designed specifically for this ancient setting. Their repertoire included both traditional Scottish songs and pieces composed specifically for this occasion. The highlight of the musical program came when renowned piper Angus Mackay performed a specially commissioned pibroch, a complex form of Highland bagpipe music that tells a story through melody. The piece, titled Welcome to the House of Stuart, had been composed to honor this specific occasion and would be added to the repertoire of ceremonial music associated with the royal family's connection to Scotland. Young performers from Edinburgh schools had been invited to participate in the ceremony, representing Scotland's future and the continuity between generations. A group of Highland dancers from the city's academy performed traditional dances with precision and enthusiasm that brought smiles to the faces of even the most formal dignitaries. Their colorful costumes and infectious energy provided a perfect contrast to the ceremony's more solemn moments. The formal presentation of gifts marked another significant portion of the ceremony. The city of Edinburgh presented a specially commissioned piece of Scottish crystal that would take its place among the royal collection. The craftsmen who had created it, working for months to perfect every detail, had incorporated symbols representing both the monarchy and Scotland's capital city. Scotland's academic institutions were represented by the presentation of an illuminated manuscript created by students and faculty from the Edinburgh College of Art. The document, written in both English and Gaelic, told the story of Scotland's relationship with the monarchy through the centuries. Each page had been decorated by hand, using techniques that connected contemporary artisans with their medieval predecessors. The business community's gift was equally thoughtful, a commission for a portrait to be painted by one of Scotland's leading artists, with the work to be displayed permanently in Edinburgh Castle's royal apartments. This gesture ensured that the memory of this day would be preserved for future visitors to see, linking past and future in the way that great royal occasions always attempt to do. Representatives from Scotland's Highland clans had traveled from across the country to participate in the ceremony. Each clan chief wore their traditional dress and carried symbols of their ancient authority. The sight of so many tartans gathered in one place created a visual spectacular that photographers would struggle to capture adequately, though they tried from every possible angle. The ceremony included a moment of particular significance when children from across Scotland read greetings in the various languages that reflected the country's cultural diversity. Gaelic, Scots, and English voices blended together as young people shared messages of welcome and hope for the future. This modern addition to the ancient ceremony acknowledged Scotland's contemporary identity while honoring its historical roots. As the formal proceedings drew to a close, the sovereign and Queen Consort signed the official visitors' book that had recorded royal visits to Edinburgh Castle for over 2 centuries. Their signatures joined those of monarchs, presidents, and dignitaries from around the world, but today's entry would be marked as particularly significant in the castle's long history. The Lord Provost delivered a closing address that summarized the feelings of Edinburgh's citizens about this momentous day. Her words spoke of the pride the city felt in hosting such an important occasion and the hope that this would mark the beginning of a long and happy relationship between the royal couple and Scotland's people. Outside the Great Hall, the crowds that had remained throughout the morning could hear the ceremonial music and occasional applause filtering through the ancient stone walls. Their patience was rewarded when the ceremony concluded and the royal couple emerged to greet the public gathered in the castle's courtyard. The formal welcome ceremony had achieved everything its organizers had hoped for, a perfect blend of tradition and innovation that honored Scotland's past while celebrating its future. The careful attention to detail, from the historical accuracy of the protocols to the inclusion of contemporary Scottish voices, had created an occasion that would be remembered as a model of how royal ceremonies could evolve while maintaining their essential character. The success of the ceremony could be measured not just in the precision of its execution, but in the genuine emotion visible on the faces of participants and observers alike. From a youngest Highland dancer to the most senior clan chief, everyone present understood they had participated in a moment of genuine historical significance. As the formal ceremony concluded, the royal couple prepared for the next phase of their Edinburgh celebration. The welcome was complete, but the day held many more opportunities for them to connect with the Scottish people and experience the warmth of their new relationship with this ancient and proud nation. The massive wooden doors of Edinburgh Castle swung open to reveal the sovereign and Queen Consort, now ready to meet the thousands of people who had waited patiently in the courtyard and along the Royal Mile. The morning's formal ceremony had established their official welcome to Scotland, but this next phase would be far more personal, a chance for ordinary citizens to meet their future monarch and his consort face to face. The Royal Protection Team had worked for weeks to create a safe yet accessible environment for these public interactions. Barriers had been positioned to allow maximum public access while maintaining appropriate security protocols. The crowds were arranged in sections, each representing different groups within Scottish society, from school children and families to veterans and community leaders. Mrs. Agnes Campbell, an 87-year-old grandmother from Glasgow, had traveled to Edinburgh specifically for this opportunity. She clutched a small Union Jack flag and a photo of herself as a young woman meeting the sovereign's grandmother during a royal visit in 1953. Her granddaughter Sarah held her arm gently, both excited and nervous about the possibility of presenting the photo to the royal couple. The Queen Consort approached their section first, her natural warmth immediately apparent as she greeted the elderly woman. Mrs. Campbell's hands trembled as she shared her photograph and told the story of that meeting decades earlier. The Queen Consort studied the black and white image carefully, asking questions about the occasion and expressing genuine interest in the family's connection to the royal family. This interaction, captured by photographers and television cameras, would later become symbolic of the continuity between generations that the monarchy represents. The Queen Consort's gentle handling of the precious photograph and her patient attention to Mrs. Campbell's stories demonstrated the personal touch that makes royal visits memorable for participants. Nearby, A group of school children from Edinburgh's Canongate Primary School waited in their best uniforms, each clutching artwork they had created specifically for this occasion. 8-year-old Isla McPherson had painted a picture of Edinburgh Castle with the sovereign and Queen Consort standing in front of it, complete with a rainbow overhead. Her teacher had helped her write a message on the back explaining that the rainbow represented hope for Scotland's future. The sovereign knelt down to Isla's level to examine her artwork, his face showing genuine delight at the child's creativity. He asked about her favorite subjects at school and whether she enjoyed living in Edinburgh. Isla's initial shyness melted away as she explained how she had chosen the colors for her painting, her words tumbling over each other in excitement. The royal couple spent nearly an hour moving through the crowd, stopping to speak with representatives from various Scottish organizations and charities. They met members of the Scottish mountain rescue teams, who presented them with small tokens made from Highland granite. The presentation allowed for discussion of the vital work these volunteers perform in Scotland's challenging terrain, highlighting the spirit of community service that characterizes much of Scottish life. Young entrepreneurs from Edinburgh's thriving technology sector had been invited to represent Scotland's modern economic achievements. 28-year-old Dr. Fiona Stewart, whose company develops renewable energy solutions, explained her work to create more efficient wind turbine designs. The sovereign's questions demonstrated his genuine interest in environmental technology and his understanding of Scotland's leadership role in renewable energy development. The Royal Botanic Garden Edinburgh had arranged a special display of native Scottish plants, allowing the Queen Consort to learn about conservation efforts to protect rare species. Head botanist Professor James Murray explained how climate change was affecting Scotland's native flora and what measures were being taken to preserve biodiversity for future generations. The Queen Consort's informed questions revealed her own interest in environmental conservation. A particularly moving encounter occurred when the royal couple met members of Military Wives Choirs Edinburgh. These women, whose partners were serving in various branches of the armed forces, had formed a choir that performed at military events and community gatherings. Their brief performance of a traditional Scottish ballad brought tears to many eyes, including those of the Queen Consort, who understood the sacrifices military families make. The crowd included representatives from Scotland's diverse immigrant communities, reflecting Edinburgh's role as a cosmopolitan city that welcomes people from around the world. The sovereign met with Mohammed Al-Hassan, a Syrian refugee who had established a successful restaurant business in Edinburgh after arriving 5 years earlier. Their conversation touched on themes of resilience, community support, and the opportunities Scotland provides for those seeking new beginnings. Local artisans have been invited to demonstrate traditional Scottish crafts, including Highland weaving, silversmithing, and tartan design. Master weaver Margaret Ross had brought a portable loom and was creating a small piece of cloth using techniques passed down through generations of her family. The Queen Consort watched closely as the intricate patterns emerged, asking questions about the symbolism embedded in traditional Scottish designs. The University of Edinburgh was represented by both faculty and students, including Dr. Sarah Mitchell, whose research into renewable energy storage had gained international recognition. Her explanation of how Scotland could become completely energy independent through renewable sources sparked an animated discussion about sustainability and innovation. The sovereign's knowledge of energy policy impressed the academic delegation. Children from Edinburgh's various cultural communities had prepared traditional dances and songs to share with the royal visitors. A group performing Scottish country dancing was followed by young people demonstrating Polish folk dances, reflecting the significant Polish community in Edinburgh. This celebration of cultural diversity showed how Scotland's traditions could coexist with and be enriched by the contributions of newer residents. The Royal Company of Archers, Scotland's ceremonial bodyguard, had formed an honor guard throughout the public meeting session. Their distinctive feather bonnets and traditional uniforms provided a visual link to centuries of Scottish ceremony while serving the practical function of additional security. Their captain briefed the sovereign on the company's history and its ongoing role in Scottish royal occasions. Local business leaders presented examples of Scottish products that had gained international recognition, from whiskey and shortbread to high-technology products and financial services. The presentation highlighted Scotland's economic diversity and its success in global markets. The Queen Consort sampled traditional Scottish tablet, her delighted reaction bringing smiles to the confectioners who had prepared it. Veterans from various conflicts had gathered to meet the royal couple, their medals telling stories of service in locations around the world. World War II veteran Thomas MacLeod, now 95, had served in North Africa and Italy. His conversation with the sovereign about military history and the importance of remembering wartime sacrifices resonated with younger veterans present, creating a sense of continuity across generations of service. The artistic community was represented by writers, musicians, and visual artists who had contributed to Scotland's cultural reputation internationally. Renowned author Morag Mackenzie discussed her latest novel about Scottish immigration to Canada, while composer Andrew Robertson explained his work creating contemporary pieces based on traditional Scottish melodies. These interactions highlighted the ongoing vitality of Scottish culture. Representatives from Scotland's renewable energy sector shared their vision for the country's environmental future. Wind farm engineer Janet Anderson explained how Scotland was leading the world in offshore wind development, while solar energy specialist David Chun discussed innovations in energy storage that would make renewable power more reliable. Their enthusiasm for Scotland's green energy potential was infectious. The royal couple met with representatives from Scottish universities who described international collaboration programs that were bringing students and researchers from around the world to Scotland. These educational exchanges were strengthening Scotland's global connections while sharing Scottish academic expertise internationally. The discussions highlighted education as one of Scotland's most successful exports. Community volunteers from across Edinburgh had been recognized for their contributions to local life. From those running food banks to volunteers working with elderly residents, these individuals represented the spirit of civic engagement that makes communities thrive. Their stories of dedication to helping others clearly moved both royal visitors, who understood the importance of community service. The final group to meet the royal couple consisted of young people from across Scotland who had been recognized for achievements in various fields, from academic excellence to sporting success to community leadership. Their conversations with the sovereign and Queen Consort focused on their hopes for Scotland's future and their plans for contributing to their communities as adults. As the public meeting session drew to a close, both royal visitors appeared energized rather than tired by the experience. The genuine connections they had made with so many different people had clearly been meaningful to them personally. Their ability to remember names and refer back to earlier conversations demonstrated the attention and respect they brought to these interactions. The success of this public meeting phase would be measured not just in the number of people met, but in the quality of connections made. From elderly veterans sharing memories to young children presenting artwork, from entrepreneurs discussing innovation to volunteers describing community service, the royal couple had experienced a comprehensive introduction to modern Scotland through the people who make it thrive. The afternoon's encounters had provided both royal visitors with insights into Scottish life that no briefing document could convey. These personal stories and individual achievements would inform their understanding of Scotland's character and help shape their future engagement with the Scottish people as their reigning sovereign and Queen Consort. As afternoon sunlight bathed Edinburgh Castle's ancient stones in golden warmth, the royal couple prepared to immerse themselves in Scotland's rich cultural heritage. The Esplanade, famous for hosting the Edinburgh Military Tattoo, had been transformed into an outdoor amphitheater where performers from across Scotland would showcase the artistic traditions that have defined the nation for centuries. The first performance began with the haunting sound of a lone piper standing atop the castle's highest tower. Pipe Major Duncan McCrae, wearing the full ceremonial dress of the Royal Scots Dragoon Guards, played a lament that echoed across Edinburgh's skyline. The melody, composed in the 18th century to honor fallen Scottish warriors, seemed to connect earth and sky as its notes drifted over the city below. Below on the esplanade, the sovereign and Queen Consort took their seats in a specially constructed viewing area that allowed them to appreciate both the performances and the spectacular backdrop of Edinburgh's Old Town. The Queen Consort had changed into a tartan dress featuring the colors of the Royal Stuart pattern, a gesture that had not gone unnoticed by the Scottish cultural community present for the celebration. The Highland Games demonstration that followed showcased athletic traditions dating back over 1,000 years. Strong men and women from across Scotland had gathered to compete in events that had once prepared clan warriors for battle. The cobber toss, where competitors attempt to flip massive wooden poles end over end, drew gasps from spectators as athletes demonstrated strength that seemed almost superhuman. James MacLeod from the Isle of Skye, winner of multiple Highland Games championships, dedicated his performance to the royal visitors. His successful cobber toss, executed with perfect form, earned applause from the crowd and an appreciative nod from the sovereign, who understood the skill and strength required for such a feat. The ancient sport provided a direct link to Scotland's warrior heritage while celebrating contemporary athletic achievement. The hammer throw event followed, with competitors spinning massive weights attached to wooden handles before launching them incredible distances across the esplanade. The rhythmic spinning and explosive release created a mesmerizing spectacle that demonstrated both physical power and precise timing. These competitions, originally designed to develop skills needed in medieval warfare, had evolved into celebrations of Scottish strength and determination. Between athletic demonstrations, traditional Scottish music filled the air with sounds that spoke to the soul of Scottish culture. The Royal Scottish National Orchestra had provided a chamber ensemble that performed pieces ranging from ancient Gaelic songs to contemporary compositions inspired by Scottish themes. Their performance of the Bonnie Banks of Loch Lomond brought many in the audience to tears, the familiar melody carrying emotional weight that transcended mere entertainment. The Fiddlers' Rally of Scotland, representing dozens of local fiddle societies, performed a medley of traditional tunes that have been passed down through generations of Scottish musicians. The complex harmonies created by multiple fiddles playing in unison demonstrated the sophistication of Scottish folk music and its continuing vitality in contemporary culture. Children in the audience clapped along to reels and jigs that their grandparents had danced to decades earlier. Highland dancing provided visual spectacle that perfectly complemented the musical performances. Young dancers from the Highland Dancing Association of Scotland wore traditional costumes, including tartan dresses, white blouses, and velvet bodices. Their performance of the Highland Fling, Scotland's national dance, required athletic skill and artistic interpretation that impressed even seasoned observers. The sword dance, performed over crossed Highland broadswords, demonstrated the precision and courage that characterized traditional Scottish dance. Legend held that warriors would perform this dance before battle, with touching the swords considered an omen of defeat. The contemporary dancers who performed for the royal couple maintained this tradition of excellence, their feet never once disturbing the gleaming blades beneath them. Scottish storytelling traditions were represented by Ciannaigh Morag Macpherson, whose family had preserved Highland legends for 7 generations. Her recitation of the tale of Robert the Bruce and the Spider captivated listeners with its message of perseverance in the face of overwhelming odds. The story, told in both English and Gaelic, reminded everyone present of the resilience that had characterized Scottish history. The Queen Consort listened intently to the Gaelic portions of the storytelling, having studied the ancient language as part of her preparation for today's events. Her obvious effort to understand and appreciate Scotland's linguistic heritage earned appreciation from Gaelic speakers present, many of whom were working to preserve their native tongue for future generations. Contemporary Scottish culture was represented by performances from Edinburgh's thriving arts community. The Scottish Youth Theatre performed excerpts from plays by contemporary Scottish playwrights, demonstrating how modern artists continue to explore themes of Scottish identity and experience. Their performance addressed contemporary social issues while maintaining connection to Scottish dramatic traditions. Visual artists had created installations around the esplanade that interpreted Scottish symbols and themes through contemporary artistic techniques. The installations used materials ranging from traditional Scottish stone and heather to modern technological elements, creating artworks that bridge past and future while celebrating Scotland's evolving cultural identity. The National Theatre of Scotland presented a specially commissioned piece that told the story of Scottish immigration and immigration through dance, music, and spoken word. The performance honored both those who had left Scotland seeking opportunities elsewhere and those who had come to Scotland from other lands, finding new homes while contributing to Scottish culture. Scottish cuisine was celebrated through cooking demonstrations by renowned chefs who had elevated traditional Scottish ingredients and recipes to international standards. Chef Marcus MacLeod demonstrated the preparation of haggis using techniques that honored tradition while appealing to contemporary palates. His explanation of Scottish culinary history revealed how geography and climate had shaped a distinctive national cuisine. The royal couple participated in a traditional Scottish tea service featuring authentic Scottish shortbread, tablet, and bannocks prepared using recipes that had been family secrets for generations. Local bakers had competed for the honor of providing these traditional treats, with the winners representing the finest examples of Scottish baking traditions. Whiskey tasting, conducted by Master Distiller Sarah Campbell from the Scotch Whisky Association, introduced the royal visitors to the complexity and variety of Scotland's national drink. The presentation covered different regional styles and production methods, explaining how geography and tradition combined to create whiskies with distinct characteristics that reflected their places of origin. Traditional Scottish crafts were demonstrated throughout the cultural celebration, with artisans showing techniques for creating tartan, working with Highland silver, and carving Celtic knotwork. These demonstrations revealed the sophistication of traditional Scottish craftsmanship and its influence on contemporary design. Young apprentices worked alongside master craftsmen, ensuring these skills would continue to future generations. The Edinburgh Festival Fringe was represented by performers who captured the energy and creativity that makes the world's largest arts festival a celebration of human creativity. Comedy, music, theater, and performance art combined to show how Edinburgh had become a global center for artistic innovation while maintaining its connection to Scottish cultural roots. Scottish literature was honored through readings by contemporary authors whose work continued traditions established by Burns, Scott, and Stevenson while addressing modern themes and experiences. The readings included poetry in both English and Scots dialect, demonstrating the continuing vitality of Scotland's literary traditions. As afternoon moved toward evening, the cultural celebration reached its climax with a massed pipe band performance involving over 200 pipers and drummers from across Scotland. The thunderous sound of multiple pipe bands playing in unison created an auditory experience that seemed to make the ancient castle stones vibrate with the power of Scottish musical tradition. The finale brought together all the day's performers for a celebration of Scotland the Brave, the unofficial national anthem that captures the spirit of Scottish pride and determination. Thousands of voices joined the massed bands in singing words that had inspired Scots for generations, creating a moment of unity that transcended individual differences while celebrating shared heritage. The Queen Consort wiped tears from her eyes as the final notes echoed across Edinburgh, clearly moved by the emotional power of the cultural celebration. The sovereign's expression showed deep appreciation for the effort that had gone into showcasing Scottish culture in all its diversity and continuing vitality. The success of the cultural celebration lay not just in its entertainment value, but in its demonstration of how Scottish traditions continue to evolve while maintaining their essential character. From ancient Highland games to contemporary theater, from traditional crafts to modern cuisine, the performances had shown Scotland as a culture confident in its heritage while embracing innovation and change. This comprehensive showcase of Scottish culture had provided the royal couple with experiences and memories that would inform their understanding of Scotland for years to come. More importantly, it had demonstrated the pride and creativity of the Scottish people, showing why their culture continued to inspire people around the world while remaining authentically Scottish at its core. As evening approached, Edinburgh Castle was transformed into a magical setting that would provide the perfect backdrop for the grand finale of this historic day. Thousands of lights had been carefully positioned throughout the castle grounds, creating an illuminated wonderland that made the ancient fortress appear to float above the city like something from a fairy tale. The technical crew had worked for weeks to design a lighting scheme that would honor both the castle's medieval character and the celebration's contemporary significance. The sovereign and Queen Consort took their places on a specially constructed balcony overlooking the castle's main courtyard, where the final ceremonies would take place. Their elevated position allowed them to see not only the immediate festivities, but also the sea of people who had gathered throughout Edinburgh to share in this momentous occasion. Thousands of citizens filled the Royal Mile, Prince's Street, and every available viewing point across the city center. The Great Edinburgh Tattoo, a specially commissioned performance created exclusively for this royal celebration, began with a procession that told the story of Scotland through music, dance, and dramatic performance. Military bands from regiments with strong Scottish connections marched in perfect formation, their uniforms reflecting centuries of military tradition, while their music bridged past and present. Leading the procession was the Royal Regiment of Scotland, whose pipes and drums had provided the soundtrack for countless Scottish ceremonies over the years. Their performance of Scotland the Brave resonated across Edinburgh's stone buildings, creating echoes that seemed to connect the present moment with generations of Scottish history. The precision of their marching and the power of their music demonstrated the discipline and pride that characterized Scottish military traditions. International military bands had traveled from across the Commonwealth to participate in this unique celebration. The Canadian Scottish Regiment pipes and drums represented the millions of Scots who had emigrated to build new lives while maintaining their cultural connections. Their performance included melodies that had traveled from Scottish glens to Canadian prairies, showing how Scottish culture had spread across the world while retaining its distinctive character. The Royal Australian Navy Band brought musical traditions that reflected Australia's Scottish heritage while incorporating elements unique to their homeland. Their innovative arrangements combined traditional Scottish tunes with contemporary influences, creating music that honored the past while speaking to current generations. The collaboration between international performers demonstrated the global reach of Scottish cultural influence. Civilian performers from Scotland's most prestigious cultural institutions added artistic depth to the military precision of the tattoo format. The Royal Scottish Academy of Music provided vocal soloists whose voices soared above the instrumental accompaniment, performing songs that ranged from ancient Gaelic ballads to contemporary compositions inspired by Scottish themes. The Edinburgh Festival Chorus, augmented by singers from across Scotland, performed a specially commissioned piece that set traditional Scottish poetry to music written for this specific occasion. The composition, created by Scotland's composer laureate, wove together musical themes from different periods of Scottish history, creating a musical journey through time that resonated with listeners on both emotional and intellectual levels. Professional Highland dancers from the Royal Scottish Country Dance Society performed choreography that had been developed specifically for this royal celebration. Their costumes incorporated elements from different periods of Scottish history, creating visual representations of cultural continuity and evolution. The complexity of their choreography required months of preparation and demonstrated the athletic skill required for traditional Scottish dance. As darkness deepened across Edinburgh, the technological elements of the celebration began to reveal their full impact. Projection mapping technology had been used to transform the castle's stone walls into canvases for visual storytelling that complemented the live performances. Images of Scottish landscapes, historical figures, and cultural symbols appeared on the ancient stones, creating a bridge between Scotland's heritage and its technological capabilities. The Queen Consort expressed amazement at how modern technology could enhance rather than overshadow traditional performances. The projections have been designed to support rather than compete with the live entertainment, creating visual backgrounds that amplified the emotional impact of music and dance while respecting the dignity of the historic setting. Fireworks began to appear in the sky above Edinburgh Castle, but these were not ordinary pyrotechnics. The display had been choreographed to complement the musical performance, with explosions of color timed to musical crescendos and quiet moments allowing the castle's illumination to dominate the visual landscape. The result was a synthesis of sight and sound that created sensory experiences beyond what either element could achieve alone. Children from schools across Scotland had been given special viewing areas where they could watch the finale while participating in their own celebrations. Their excited voices could be heard singing along with familiar melodies, their enthusiasm adding energy to the more formal aspects of the ceremony. These young voices represented Scotland's future, and their joy in the celebration promised that Scottish traditions would continue to evolve and thrive. The emotional climax of the evening came when the sovereign and Queen Consort participated in a ceremony of commitment to Scotland and its people. The ritual, drawing on both ancient traditions and contemporary values, involved the lighting of a special beacon that would burn throughout their reign as a symbol of their dedication to Scottish service. The beacon itself had been crafted by Scottish artisans using traditional metalworking techniques combined with contemporary design elements. The flame would be visible from across Edinburgh and would be maintained as a permanent reminder of this day's significance. The symbolism of light conquering darkness resonated deeply with observers, many of whom had brought candles to light in solidarity with the royal beacon. Local religious leaders from various faith traditions offered blessings that reflected Scotland's spiritual diversity while acknowledging the role of faith in Scottish life. The interfaith character of these blessings demonstrated Scotland's evolution into a multicultural society while maintaining respect for traditional Christian influences on Scottish culture. The final musical performance brought together all the evening's performers for a rendition of Auld Lang Syne that included the crowd gathered throughout Edinburgh. Television broadcasts allowed people across Scotland and around the world to join in singing the famous song, creating a moment of global unity centered on this ancient Scottish castle. As the last notes faded across Edinburgh's skyline, silence fell over the thousands gathered to witness this historic day. The sovereign and Queen Consort stood together on their balcony, silhouetted against the illuminated castle, waving to the crowds who had shared in their celebration. The image would be remembered as symbolic of their relationship with the Scottish people, elevated by their position, but connected to those they would serve. The practical aspects of concluding such a massive event had been planned with the same attention to detail that had characterized the entire day. Transportation arrangements allowed the crowds to disperse safely while maintaining the celebratory atmosphere that had defined the day. Public transport had been expanded to handle the additional passengers, and volunteers helped direct people to their destinations. Behind the scenes, the massive cleanup operation began immediately, with crews working through the night to restore Edinburgh Castle and the surrounding areas to their normal condition. The temporary structures erected for the celebration would be carefully dismantled, but the memories created would last for generations. Media coverage of the day's events ensured that the celebration's impact extended far beyond those who had been physically present. International news organizations had provided extensive coverage, sharing images and stories of Scottish culture and tradition with global audiences. The positive coverage reinforced Scotland's reputation as a destination for cultural tourism and helped promote Scottish businesses and institutions worldwide. The economic impact of the celebration would be felt throughout Edinburgh and across Scotland for months to come. Hotels, restaurants, and shops had experienced unprecedented demand, while the international media attention had provided marketing value that no advertising campaign could have achieved. Tourism officials were already planning initiatives to capitalize on the increased global interest in Scottish culture and heritage. for the sovereign and Queen Consort. This day had provided an intensive introduction to their new relationship with Scotland that no briefing or preparation could have replicated. The personal connections they had made with Scottish people from all walks of life would inform their understanding of their roles for years to come. As they retired to their private quarters within Edinburgh Castle, both royal visitors reflected on a day that had exceeded their highest expectations. The warmth of their reception, the quality of the performances, and the obvious pride of the Scottish people in their culture and heritage had created memories that would influence their approach to royal service throughout their reign. The success of this royal celebration demonstrated that traditional monarchical ceremonies could evolve to meet contemporary expectations while maintaining their essential dignity and significance. The careful balance between ancient traditions and modern innovations had created a template for royal celebrations that honored the past while embracing the future. Edinburgh Castle settled into evening quiet, its stones having witnessed another remarkable chapter in the long story of Scottish royal history. The lights that had illuminated the celebration gradually dimmed, but the beacon lit by the royal couple continued to burn brightly, symbolizing the continuing relationship between the monarchy and the people of Scotland. Tomorrow would bring normal life returning to Edinburgh, but the memory of this extraordinary day would remain with everyone who had participated. The royal celebration had strengthened connections between past and present, between tradition and innovation, and between the monarchy and the people, ensuring that Scottish royal traditions would continue to evolve and inspire future generations.